Hey there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my rant on the 1994 comedy, if you even want to call it a comedy, because nothing about this film to me was even remotely funny or humorous. National Lampoon's Last Resort. Now, before I get around to what I like to call one of the last resorts of entertainment, I want to give a special shout out to Brock for requesting this review, and if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you would like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to my PayPal. Link will be in the video description down below, and I will try to get to it as soon as I possibly can. Now, National Lampoon's Last Resort is actually the first direct-to-video film that has the National Lampoon name attached to it. Now, there were some TV films prior to this, or made-for-cable movies, and some other theatrical features that weren't just the vacation movies. But this was like the first one that was solely direct-to-video. And I don't know why they attached their name to this garbage, this shipwreck of a comedy. Shipwreck is putting it too lightly. This shit wreck of a comedy. Now, the film is directed by Rafal Zielinski, and this is the same guy who directed a bunch of Screwballs movies prior to this, and other low-budget, softcore porn kind of comedies. But the same year that he directed this, he directed a film called Fun, which I think is a really underrated gem. It's a drama about two young girls who go on a killing spree. It's well shot, it's well written, it's got some good performances, it's a genuinely compelling and chilling film. And the same guy who directed that directed Last Resort in the same year. And I can't wrap my head around that. I mean, what the hell? What the hell, Rafal? Seriously. I know you're capable. I saw it in Fun. But then you see shit like this and you're like, man, who directed Fun? Because it doesn't look like the same guy who directed Last Resort. The direction in this is absolute dreck. It's completely unfocused. It has no comedic timing or energy. There are moments where he's trying to show some surreal angles or techniques because there's some surrealistic imagery in this, but it's shot in a way that's just so inept and terrible that it doesn't really make it pop the way that I think he wanted it to. And there's a lot of scenes in this where it just seems like he just didn't give a shit. He did not care. He went through the motions so he could get his paycheck and move on. And on one hand, I don't blame him because this film is terrible. It's a turd. There's nothing remotely salvageable about this shit. So, on one hand, I don't blame him for just sleepwalking his way through the direction so he can get his money and go on to the next project. But at the same time, like, the same year you do Fun, you direct this. I mean, at least try a little bit harder. At least look at it as, okay, yeah, it's a cheap direct-to-video movie with the two Coreys, and it's stupid. But you know what? I'm going to give it my best. And I'm going to try. I'm going to try to make these zany moments look cool or inventive or pop visually. But no, it doesn't do that. It's lifeless. It's limp. It's lame. Just like the rest of the film. So yeah, the direction sucks. The screenplay by Patrick Laborteaux and Damian Lee, I don't even know how much of this film these two wrote, because it just seems like this entire movie is improvised and it's just the result of one massive long fever dream or bender. Like, there are just so many things about this film that make no fucking sense. And it's a movie if you even want to call it a movie, because there's barely anything there that you can really call a plot. So you have these two characters named Sam and Dave, and they are working at this restaurant at the beginning of the movie. And before I get around to talking about more about the script, I want to mention the film's obnoxious and headache-inducing opening credits. Like, this film features some of the most absolutely just agonizing opening credits I've ever seen in my entire life. It's got bright flashing colors and white flashes. It's got this annoying soundtrack. I hate the opening credits for this film. And it just sets things up for the pain that's about to come. There's a line of dialogue from a character in this movie that fits the experience of sitting through Last Resort perfectly. Pain. Throbbing pain. Boom, boom, boom. Like hemorrhoids. Yeah. That sums it up perfectly. That's what it's like watching National Lampoon's Last Resort. It's like having throbbing hemorrhoids for an hour and a half. And there's no preparation H. So, God. Yeah, the opening credits. Credits. See? I can't even say credits. Because they're not. They're opening credits. This film has opening credits. Because it just gives you nothing but a massive splitting headache. And so Sam and Dave, they're working at a restaurant. The restaurant burns down. They get evicted from their apartment. And Sam has an uncle named Rex Carver, who was some has-been actor who was in a bunch of pirate movies. For some reason, he has his own treasure island. He sends Sam a letter telling him that he wants him to come in and work at the island as a scuba instructor. And Sam and Dave run into this bag lady who gives them like a magic coin or some shit, and then they are magically transported to Treasure Island. And this magic coin is never used again, never referenced again. You see the bag lady a few different times throughout the film on the island, but there's nothing that's ever done with it. I hate films like this. I hate scripts like this that want to have fantasy logic, but at pure random, and for the most part just want to be a straightforward plot that takes place in reality. But they have all these fantastical, weird elements that just don't make any sense. Just because lol random, oh, there's a mermaid, and Sam has sex with a mermaid and hides her in a suitcase. You have the bag lady with her magic coin. You have the scene when Sam and Dave go underwater and they try to look for the buried treasure, and it's shot in a way that makes you think it's a cutscene from Pee-wee's Playhouse. You just have all these really random, just surreal moments that just don't make any sense. Like the apartment that Sam and Dave were in, it's set up like it's some kind of weird art installation, like some kind of bizarre art exhibit, because it's split down the middle. Like one half is painted blue with like the night sky in the background, and the other half is painted like orange or red with like day. So it's like a night and day, but it's this ugly looking art exhibit that is probably more pretentious than anything else. And you're like, why the fuck does their apartment look like this? So yeah, just random nonsense. You have this character named Sonia who worships this god called Yaya. You have this moment at the end of the film, when Sam and Dave and the other characters, they go to try to search for the treasure on Treasure Island, and they run into a talking rock that has the voice of a little kid who like insults them. And then there's like another moment when they run into, what is it, like a magic palm tree or some shit, and then they run into Zelda fucking Rubenstein, who plays this hermit, this magical hermit, who then has them be contestants on some kind of game show where they need to test their mettle or test their spiritual and physical and mental might to see if they're worthy to be able to get the final directions to where the treasure is. There's even a scene where Zelda Rubinstein is measuring the size of people's dicks. Because that's the spiritual challenge, by the way, is the size of their dicks. Like, what the fuck am I watching? What is this? There's this guy who's like the villain of the movie named Hemlock. And this guy is going around and he's trying to take over the island, and it cuts to him and he's doing weird random shit like drinking some woman's blood from a hose. He's got these pets that he keeps killing, like a iguana and a spider. He's into these weird fetishes. There's a scene where he's dressed like Hitler, and there's like a swastika in the background, and he has this voice box where he speaks like this, where he's like, and it's just like, God, this film is already unbelievably obnoxious. And you have the villain speaking with a fucking voice box. And the villain gets defeated at the end of the film because Corey Haim has a helmet that he uses to like mess with the frequency of his voice box, and now he sounds like a chipmunk, and that embarrasses him, so then he gives up. I mean, God damn it. What the hell? What is this? I'm telling you, it's like a fever dream. It's like the result of a week-long bender or some shit. God, the script is so bad. You have these sequences where Hemlock has these two henchmen who are trying to take out Sam and Dave because they think they are CIA agents. And they dress in drag in one scene, and it's totally unconvincing. There's another scene where the other guy dresses up like a clownfish and tries to shoot a dart. And of course, he's the one that ends up getting shot with the dart and gets knocked out. You've got other sequences that involve Rex. And he has groupies who are absolutely enamored with him and are really just huge fans of his. You've got this guy who is the driver of the bus that takes people to the island, and he's this African American with a Jamaican accent, of course. And by the way, he's the one that had the biggest dick in the dick measuring contest. And he's driving the bus backwards because that's the only gear that works. And they do this whole thing with Rex where it seems like he's a moron. And he's crazy because he's always thinking that he's in one of his movies. But then it's kind of an act, and he's actually smarter than you think he is. Like you would ever really give a shit. Oh, and the reason why they have to find the buried treasure, of course, is because Sam and Dave, they trick Rex into signing a contract to sell the island to Hemlock, and Hemlock mortgages them to the hilt. And in order to get out of the contract, they're going to have to pay $3.5 million. And the treasure itself isn't even treasure. It's just an old series of film reels of some movie that Hemlock starred in back in the day. Like the only film that he ever starred in, because Hemlock is the actor who played Rex Carver's nemesis in these pirate movies. I'm just like, it's not even treasure. There's not even any treasure. It's just some old film reels. Like, was the fucking point of all this? And of course, you know, it ends with Sam and Dave staying on the island, and Sam gets the woman, Alex, who tricked him and was working for Hemlock, but I guess because he's thinking with his dick so much, he just trusts her, and she's a good guy randomly because Hemlock didn't pay her enough. But okay, and then you have the whole stuff with Dave and Sonia, and they become an item. But the whole film is set up in a way where that doesn't make a lot of sense. Dave, he's been bullshitting her this entire time, and he and Sam come up with a plan to get the contract signed so they can raise money, and that's what makes that's what makes Sonia think that he might not be that bad. But of course then you find out that it was all a trick and a ruse, and she hates him again. And I guess because they won the competition and everything turned out okay with the treasure, that she now wants to be with them. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. Most of the film is spent with her hating him and hating his guts and not being into him. Like initially she might have been kind of into him, but then when she finds out that he's a bullshit artist, she doesn't want anything to do with him. And that's just fitting, because this film is just the result of a bullshit artist. From the director to the writers, because there's just nothing but unfunny bullshit. I mean, there's an entire sequence at the end that's just one giant long music video for this band called Dread Zeppelin, which features this guy who's a fat Elvis impersonator. Yeah, it's just the same song you heard in the opening credits, but this time around it's just a music video. Like, this is the kind of film where they didn't have anything. They didn't have shit. They had nothing. They had nothing to work with here. They had no talent, no brains, no plot. I mean, there are random scenes where Corey Haim's character, Dave, he just starts speaking like a robot for some reason, but that's never really brought up again. And he wears this helmet that I guess is supposed to be virtual reality. And I'm like, is that what this is? Is some kind of virtual reality delusion? But that's never really clarified. So it just doesn't make any sense, because he'll just randomly have the helmet on, and then in other scenes he won't have the helmet. Then he'll have other sequences when he'll skyrocket out of the water like his scuba tanks are rockets, and land face first into some woman's breasts so hard that it makes her breasts pop. And then like a couple scenes later, the woman is fine. She just has bandages on her tits. They put her silicone breast implants back in, I guess, somehow by magic. And then he's about to land on her tits again, and then she hits him in the face. Might as well hit me in the face for sitting through this shit. God damn it. I mean, I'm starting to get red. I swear, I think my fucking skin rash is acting up again just because I'm talking about this movie. I don't know what else to say about the script. I mean, it's just not funny. Doesn't make any sense. None of the jokes land. Everything's just random and nonsensical. The performances are pathetic. I mean, Corey Hellman might as well be Hellman. Feels like I'm in hell watching this movie. Corey Feldman, Corey Haim. They've been in better films. They've delivered better performances. They don't have anywhere near the same chemistry here. You can tell that they just did this for the money. Both of them also are kind of unlikable characters. Don't really like Sam and Dave that much. Geoffrey Lewis, who was in Double Impact and a few other films, he's in this as Rex Carver. And I swear to God, I think he was just drunk. I think he was just drunk off his ass while shooting this movie. And I can't blame him, to be honest. Whatever helps you get through it, man. Maureen Flannigan plays Sonia, the scuba diving instructor who's always praying to the god Yah. And she was cute, but the character, there really wasn't much to this character other than she was just into a lot of goddess worship, and she was very spiritual, and that's really about it. Demetra Hampton plays Alex, this sexpot who's hired by Hemlock to trick the two Coreys into signing the island over to Hemlock. Robert Mandan plays Hemlock, and just your typical mustache twirling, just really just irritating and annoying kind of bad guy who's not intimidating and also not funny, and you just don't like any scene that he's in. You just want him off the screen. He gave me flashbacks to Leslie Nielsen and Surf Ninjas. And whenever that happens, whenever you are reminded of that performance, that's a really bad performance. Patrick Laberteau, he played a young Hemlock, one of the writers. Tony Longo is in this. You might recognize him. He's been in a few things. He was in Angels in the Outfield and some other stuff. He's just wasted here. It's an embarrassing performance and role for him. And you got, I forgot, I think it might be Michael Ralph or Milton Sutz. I think it's Michael Ralph. Plays some guy named Flash, I think. No, that's a different guy. He flashes the... Oh yeah, he was in Marked for Death. My God, he was a crowd member in Marked for Death. He wasn't actually a star. But yeah, he plays the African-American bus driver guy who's named Flash because he flashes people. Yeah, that's his whole thing. He just randomly opens his trench coat and flashes people. This is funny because it's a little random. Yeah, I think it's, it must be fucking... God, I don't know. They don't list the guy on Wikipedia, but there's this other guy who was playing like another henchman of Hemlock, and he came across like a discount store, Dana Garvey, and they have Zelda Rubenstein as the old hermit. Zelda Rubenstein. I will give Zelda this, like, her scenes were honestly some of the only salvageable things about this movie because she was having fun. So I was kind of having a little bit of fun with those scenes because she was having so much fun. But man, I mean, the cast is pitiful. They deliver pitiful performances. The music by Ronald J. Weiss was woeful. It was bad. I know I've said bad like a million times, but that's like the first thing that comes to mind when it comes to this movie. It's a bad movie. And the song Last Resort by Dred Zeppelin, it's kind of catchy, but not in a way that actually sticks with you. And then after a certain amount of time, it just becomes annoying. And then the editing. I have to bring up the editing because there's really nothing to say about the cinematography by Peter Benison. But the editing by David Mitchell, this is some of the worst editing I have ever seen. The editing is so frenetic. It's so schizo that it's spectacular in how just awful it is and how hard it is to watch. There are numerous scenes where it seems like the movie is skipping. And the editor, I guess, thought it was a good idea. So you'll have moments where Corey Haim is going, boom! And then it's like repeated over and over again. Like it's spliced together. And it's not clever. It just adds to the migraine-inducing series of headaches that this film bombards you with. So you're just Corey Haim going, boom, 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 boom. And you're just like, oh, God. Did they make this movie while they were high on meth and coke? I mean, why is it edited like this? So, yeah, I don't really know what else to say about National Lampoon's Last Resort, except I want to mention this last bit of trivia, because I thought this was more intriguing and more interesting than the movie itself. And this explains why this film honestly was probably made in the first place. It was all a gimmick. Vidmark Entertainment, who released the film on VHS, they organized a special sweepstakes to promote the film. There was an advertisement where the stars of the movie, Corey Feldman and Corey Haim, explained to the viewers how they can enter the competition that was put on VHS tapes along with the movie. This sweepstakes was called Island Madness Sweepstakes. It offered a grand prize of 12 vacation trips for two, as well as 150 other free gifts, including rollerblades, and beach fun packs. The ad promised that those who win the grand prize will be flown to Hibiscus Beach Resort at St. Croix, an island in the Caribbean Sea, for free that belongs to the United States Virgin Islands, where they'd get to stay for 6 days and 5 nights. And in order to enter the competition, the viewers were told to write down their names, phone numbers, and addresses, and send the information by snail mail to Vidmark Entertainment. The instructions on how to get the free rollerblades and beach fun packs were only shown at the very end of the movie, though, for people who watched it all the way through. And there's probably a lot of people who didn't even watch it all the way through. They ejected it from their VCR and threw it out their fucking window or into the garbage where the film belongs about a couple minutes in. And they're like, nope, I don't care what the sweepstakes is. Free rollerblades is not enough for having to sit through this torture. I mean, every person who sat through this fucking thing deserved a ticket to the Caribbean, if you ask me. Give me a ticket to the Caribbean so I could spend 6 days and 5 nights at a resort just for having to sit through such excruciatingly bad comedy and bad entertainment. I can't even barely string words together anymore because the film was so awful that it's like it's affecting the way that I think and the way that I speak during this video. I should probably stop before I start slobbering everywhere and just slurring my words and being unable to think clearly, and probably before a rash just forms all the way all over my body and makes my dick fall off. Anyway, I got nothing else to say about National Lampoon's Last Resort except, for the love of all that's holy in this world, do not watch this movie. Even if you're a fan of the two Coreys, don't. Don't do it. Just watch episodes of that A&E show, The Two Coreys, or watch Dream a Little Dream. Hell, watch Dream a Little Dream 2. Any other film featuring the two Coreys is probably going to be better than Last Resort. But anyway, that's my epic rant on National Lampoon's Last Resort. And as always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you later. See ya. God.